I awoke on the sofa, stiff and restless, because I had passed out rather than fall asleep naturally. As I looked out the window, I realized it was still night, and I couldn't tell what time it was because there seemed to be no clocks in the apartment whatsoever, at least in the living room. Grabbing my empty mug, I moved as slow as possible to the kitchen, hoping to make myself another cup of coffee. I would have asked Cassie for help, but I was almost certain that she was still asleep due to how silent the apartment was. Besides, as I neared the kitchen, I could smell a fresh pot, quite recently made. After a few seconds of searching for the light switch, I got it on, revealing the most horrifying scene I would ever see in my life. Sure, I would see much nastier down the road, but this was the first act of disgusting horror since one of my parents knifed the other. Standing before me was the general himself, the exact same man as he was in the other realm, only he was hunched over a body that dangled in his large, muscular arms. She was a woman, and my eyes grew even wider as I could see who it was. As I got closer, I noticed he had his lips around hers, breathing in her life force. Oh no! Cassie! I trembled, alerting the general of my presence. Please, no! Like what you see, don't you? The evil man asked me as he parted his lips from Cassie's. I slowly shook my head, too afraid to shed tears for a lost friend. I had made a grave mistake coming after this man. No, was all that I could say, and the general kept a calm expression. That's a shame, he said genuinely, setting Cassie's body on the floor. Things like this are necessary to get by in this world, regardless of how ugly they may be. We are all just minor reflections of our society, are we not? Shut up! I shouted at him suddenly, finding my last nerve a bit irritated. You just murdered an innocent woman, my friend! And this city, much less the world, will so much as slightly notice. The general argued simply, keeping his calm attitude. I could take a life every time you blink, and the world would never take note. I said shut up! I screamed, falling to my knees next to Cassie's body. The empty, dead expression on her face broke my heart, releasing guilt throughout my entire being. She was only dead because I had stayed here, because I had saved her in the alleyway, and because I had come to Earth in the first place. You look pathetic, the general mocked me, yet still relaxed instead of aggressive. Speak for yourself, I grumbled. All interest, or any shade of it, was absent from my hollow eyes. Well, take a good look at yourself, the general criticized. You feel guilt, and guilt is pathetic. Just get it over with, I begged him, closing my eyes as I prepared to be drained like all the other poor, helpless souls. The general snorted. She was but a tasty treat, a mere bonus snack. But I'm not here to kill you, Daniel. My eyes shot open as my head snapped in his direction. How do you know who I am? I asked him curiously, yet with deep suspicion. Something wasn't right here. You're kidding me, right? The general chuckled, seeing that I was serious. I can drain life force from both the dead and the living, and you think a slight change in physical appearance will fool me? Old man or young man, the core of your essence can never change. Well, then why are you here? I asked him, growing tired of these games. Why track me down and needlessly kill this girl if you didn't want to kill me? I wouldn't say I needlessly killed her, the general corrected me. Her soul has merely added to my power. Just tell me why you're here, I barked, causing him to smile for a quick moment before all the calm joy left his body. I know you've been following me, Daniel, he said to me in a very serious tone. And I also know that you intend to prevent me from whatever you think I'm doing. But you stole hundreds of souls! I cut him off with a shriek, and he laughed. Hardly, he disagreed. Those souls were begging to be anywhere but there, same as me. Same as you. I guess you could say I was their golden ticket out, as they were also mine. But furthermore," he paused and his expression darkened, "I can do without you sniffing my trail, so I'm warning you to stay out of my way. I've done much worse for a lot less." I shook my head. "Regardless, Join me, Daniel," he murmured suddenly, and my eyes widened at the villain's offer. "I can teach you how to take their essence," the monster of a man continued. "Souls will give you the power I possess, and together we could change this world, Daniel." "I won't just steal souls," I told him, shaking my head. "I will never take the life of an innocent." There was nothing to keep my mind off of my mother, the main reason as to why I couldn't take his offer. "That's why you're weak," the general hissed, leaning down into my face. "You refuse to devour the souls that cry out for you to free them. I am strong because I listen." "I'm certain she didn't want to give up her life," I murmured, gesturing to Cassie's lifeless body on the tile floor next to me. The general looked her cold, stiff corpse over, and grinned as he took a deep, delicious breath. "I suppose there will be those like you, and those like me," he said, and I stood back up. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" I growled, stomping my foot as the villain poured himself a cup of coffee from the pot. "I saw you had coffee for the first time earlier," he said to me, revealing that he'd been watching me for several hours now. "How long did you spend in that realm?" he asked curiously. "What year are you from?" "I was there for 56 years, I answered his first question quietly, but direct. "But I was born in 1870, I finished, answering his final question. "And all that time you never knew escape was possible?" he said, shaking his head. "It wasn't until I came along that you found your way back here, home sweet home. Don't you see? I am a good thing for you, with much to teach if you'll just see this from my perspective. You've seen shades of the power I now possess." He urged me further. "I have much more at my disposal. You could too." His offer seemed like the sweetest way out, to be honest. But then again, my life had been filled with nothing but grain and salt. Perhaps a little bit of sugar wasn't what I needed. I was quiet for several moments before a curious question popped into my own head. "What are you planning to do with this power?" I asked him, immediately knowing what the answer was as he sneered. "Well, you see, Daniel, there are quite a bit of superhumans coming out of the woodworks." The general's sneer grew. "I intend to knock them off their pedestals, establishing myself as the first supervillain, not that this world needs, but what the natural balance begs for. From this moment on, my name is Sergeant Death." "You're insane," I shuddered, unable to hear anymore. "I won't be a part of your demonic crusade. You must be stopped. At all costs." Before anything else could be said or done, his large hand grabbed me by the throat and squeezed. My eyes nearly popped out of my head as my feet left the ground. "That's too bad," the general, now known as Sergeant Death, murmured. As he held me high enough that my head was only inches from the ceiling, he moved around so that my back was facing the kitchen window. "Stop!" I gasped, struggling for air. "You only get one offer, Daniel," Sergeant Death growled, squeezing even harder. "And that time has come and passed, leaving you only with death as an option. I must say, it is a shame that you refused me. You may have made a powerful ally." I'll just come back," I told him. "I will stop you." "You can come back as many times as you please, I'm sure," Sergeant Death chuckled, squeezing hard enough that I wouldn't be able to speak anymore. "But unless you devour souls, you will never possess the power necessary to even hinder my efforts. Now be gone!" As his grip loosened, everything seemed to happen in slow motion. My feet traveled slowly towards the floor, and when I was mere inches away, he thrust his boot into my chest, forcing me out the window. As I crashed through the glass, I couldn't help but catch one last glance at Cassie's cold, motionless body. Her dead expression mirrored my inner loss, and once everything seemed to return to regular motion, I closed my eyes, soaring several stories to the street below. I re-entered the other realm in a rush, crashing back into the endless darkness full of moaning souls and howling spirits. My body once again was gone, leaving my weighted conscience to recreate myself. Only this time I took the body of a 30-year-old like I did on Earth. I did nothing for several moments but stared dumbly into the void as my brain was overwhelmed with enough emotional stress to shatter my skull. I had a feeling it would have if I were still alive. The worst came when my mind was able to separate my thoughts and function properly, leaving me to once again fully realize just how bad everything was, especially because of me. The final image of Cassie's hollow expression cut me deep, deeper than my father ever could have with that kitchen knife. Oh, Mother, all I have ever done is get beautiful women killed. I had saved that poor girl's life, but accepted her invitation. Letting me stay at her apartment only got her involved with my enemies. I had unintentionally introduced a new supervillain to the world, putting more people in danger. Every person that he killed was on me, my conscience. I couldn't help but raise my hands and stare into the palms for a while, swimming in my thoughts. Over in this realm I had amazing powers and strength, yet on Earth I was a mere human being. Regardless of how many times I traveled back to the living world, I would never possess the ability to defeat Sergeant Death. If only I were more like the superheroes that radio spoke about, strong and resilient in the face of dangerous evil. Maybe I could have saved my mother so long ago. Maybe I could have saved Cassie and the countless others that Sergeant Death had devoured. Perhaps I wouldn't be here now, pitying myself for being so powerless and pathetic. Would you believe that I was happy before Sergeant Death came into my life? I had a purpose in this realm, a sense of home. Now I was just a poor, pitiful excuse for a sentient being, praying that there was a death beyond my familiarity. Things began to take a twisted turn as I placed my hands over my head, gritting my teeth together as it all became too much to handle. Dozens of voices entered my thoughts, once again scrambling my fragile mind state. There were too many for me to try and recognize any single one, a feeling that felt like razor blades being shaken up in my skull. "Stop!" I bellowed, my voice echoing across the realm beyond my known reach. That was when I noticed everything did indeed stop. All except for the clearest male voice in my head. "Hello, Daniel Edwards." It spoke to me softly and I blinked several times, wondering where the speaker was. Was all I could come up with before it spoke again. "You can't see me, yet you have every day spent in this realm," it said in a stern tone. "What do you mean?" I asked simply. "Well, I am as much a part of this place as any other spirit here. I just don't possess a body, or even the shadow of one." "You exist only as a conscience?" I realized excitedly, but was still suspicious, narrowing my eyes. "Yes," it answered slowly, "much like you did when you arrived here. Do you remember that, Daniel?" "Of course I do," I grunted, becoming annoyed with the lack of information being shared. "But who are—" "We are the peacekeepers of this realm," the strange voice answered me, and I raised an eyebrow. "We?" "The other voices you were hearing are countless others like myself, existing in this realm to protect the natural order here," he told me, and immediately the other voices dueled with his. "You do understand the existence of this place, yes?" "It's some sort of purgatory, right?" I answered with a shrug. "We call it the Post Realm. they revealed to me, fitting another piece to the puzzle that has been my life. But you are correct in your belief of this realm's nature. Every lost soul unworthy of either damnation or the afterlife are instead thrown here. Does that mean... No, this doesn't prove that any religion is correct. They cut me off with a chuckle. What this means is... Why am I here then? I exploded, the last half-century's worth of emotion pouring out of me. Why in the hell is my father here and not burning somewhere else? Why does he get to forget what he's done, and I have to exist forever to remember it? I found myself balling my fists in hopes to somehow punch them. We have watched you, Daniel Edwards. The man's voice spoke again, alone from the others. From the moment you arrived, we have carefully masked our presence, allowing you to figure out what amazing things you could do, unlike the intangible corpses here. So then you just watch from the sidelines as Sergeant Death comes in here and wrecks everything? I asked with a disgusted face. He's on Earth now, devouring every soul he comes across. I say that's worse than being here or in hell. We agree, the man's voice told me with a chirp. Which is why we were going to retaliate until you replicated what he had done, escaping the realm as well. That's when we knew all of our watching and influencing had been for the better. We simply waited for him to kill you so that you could come back here and earn your reward. I frowned. My reward? What are you talking about? Devouring souls is a sort of dark arts that we cannot allow to take place in this or any other realm. Sergeant Death's mere existence is a stain on our natural order. We are known as the Peacekeepers of the Post-Realm, various consciences that will take any necessary action to preserve the well-being of all realms. You still aren't getting to the point, I said, rolling my eyes. You have proven that despite your losses, the strength you possess will never yield nor break. The voices explained, once again dueled with one another. For a very long time, both the living and the post-realms have maintained natural order, with us and us alone. But now that this Sergeant Death has taken to devouring souls, the realms need something more. I frowned. Like what? Like you. They answered simply, and I shook my head after a moment. No. I argued softly, repeating the word until I was frustrated enough. I'm no good on Earth. Just a fragile human being like every other one of his victims. Even if we somehow dragged him back over here, I still can't guarantee that my power would rival his. Indeed you can't, the voices of the Peacekeepers agreed with me. And your power wouldn't. I angrily threw my arms into the air. Then what's so special about me? We can give you the power you need, an indefinite promotion to Upkeeper of the Realms. You can? We will. Suddenly a bubble of white energy surrounded me. I raised my hands to defend myself, but the Peacekeepers quickly calmed me. Easy, they urged as I felt my body swell up with powerful energy. Let us do our work, then you may seek your foe. I only nodded, accepting that what they said was the truth. As my wide eyes began to glow, I finally realized what my real purpose had always been. Since the moment of my birth, these eyes of mine had been leading me to this day. The day when I became something more, something truly important. My muscles grew, and I could feel my genetic code change forever, signifying that I wasn't dead nor alive, but simply a walking testament to the afterlife. Whoa, was all I could make out as I stared into my glowing white palms. This is unreal. You have been rewarded with the power of our true champion, the voices boasted, and I smiled. It's as if I've never lived a day of my life until now. Remember, they said to me, you are responsible for keeping both the post-realm and the living world safe. We hope you understand the weight of such a responsibility. I do, I answered them sternly, ready to prove myself even further. My mother would be so proud if she could see me now. Will my powers come naturally, or will I have to train them? Through your imagination, you will find the limits of your power. They answered my question. I couldn't have been any happier. Are you ready to go back to Earth? The voices asked me, and I couldn't help but grin, anxious to see Sergeant Death on different terms. Of course I am, I told them. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. Good, they replied together. Then go and save your world, Daniel Edwards. Before I could say or do anything, I vanished, racing towards Earth at their will. I couldn't wait to get my hands on Sergeant Death and every other piece of scum that reminded me of my father.